3 incredible looking upcoming projects, which I'm personally very interested in because I think the technology is very strong and importantly, they look like great investment opportunities. In today's video, I'm going to be running you guys through these 3 projects and explaining why I like them so much. Hi, I'm Tom from Crypto Gurus, and if you want to learn more, keep watching. As always, we have to begin with the boring disclaimer, which is to let you guys know that nothing in this video or on this channel is financial advice. I'm going to flash up the full disclaimer now. Please pause the video and read it in full. Another thing I want to say is because people always ask about whether content is sponsored or not. The rule is, unless I say it's sponsored, it's not sponsored. So in the example of this video, I haven't spoken with any of these projects and it is not a sponsored video in any way, shape or form. The reason I'm making this video today is because I've been talking with you guys from the community in the Telegram group, and it's clear that you guys want me to tell you about more upcoming projects which you can follow yourselves. I've been meaning to make more videos like I used to with top 3 ICOs of May 2018 sort of thing. The only problem is that the ICO space has changed. Back then, it was very easy to get to the end of the month before, look at the month ahead and pick which projects you wanted to invest into. Now you have to be so early to make sure you don't miss out on any whitelists that it's very difficult to do so. On top of that, the majority of projects back then announced well in advance when their token sale was going to be so you could plan ahead. These days, a lot of them have a whitelist and then they announce their ICO in very short notice after. That's why I plan to begin bringing you guys more regular videos introducing several ICOs which I'm looking at that haven't necessarily got an ICO or whitelist date at this point in time. The idea is so that you guys can add them to your list and keep them on your radar so you can keep track of the projects as I do. I've also taken a leaf out of CoinCrunch's book on this one. I'm a big fan of their videos and Dan is always making content about the hidden gems and the undiscovered ICOs. I'm a big fan of those videos, so I wanted to do something similar and serve my community as well as they do. Let's jump in and talk about project number 1. Certic is a project which are building a formal verification framework, and the idea is to verify smart contracts, in other words, picking up on bugs and correcting those bugs in a scalable manner. It's no secret the smart contract bugs are a huge issue. We've seen many smart contracts in the past actually cause investors to lose millions of dollars due to simple coding errors. As good as some of these coders are, they are only human at the end of the day and they will make mistakes. So smart contracts must be audited to correct these mistakes. That's the goal that Certic are pursuing. Now, many of you are now probably thinking, well, what about Quantstamp? I'm a big fan of Quantstamp myself, so how does Certic compare? Well, according to their white paper, Quantstamp uses traditional model checking techniques and requires an intensive amount of human effort for reviewing the code, which limits the scalability. The idea of both projects is to have an automated system where you can check smart contracts without having to use human interaction. The less human interaction, the more scalable and the more smart contracts can be checked. Is Certic's claim true then? Are they going to be more scalable than Quantstamp? The honest answer? I don't know. I'm not a developer and I don't know which method is better. However, I am an investor, and looking at this from an investor's perspective, I understand how huge the target market is. So Quantstamp and Certic are fighting for a huge target market, and if they are able to share it, they're both going to be very successful. With any startup, the team is always an incredibly important factor, and I would argue the most important. So what about Certic's team? Working our way from left to right on the screen, and I'm not even going to try the pronunciation of these names, we have a PhD in computer science at Yale. In the middle, we have a professor of computer science at Yale. And on the right hand side, a PhD in computer science from the University of Pennsylvania. So it's fair to say that these guys have very impressive backgrounds on the technical side. They don't so much have the business development side, but then again, they haven't had their token sale yet, and I'm sure these are the types of people they will bring into the project once they've done so. The roadmap is on the screen now. Feel free to pause the video at this point and have a read if you would like. The key takeaway message is that they've already carried out significant development and they're very close to their public release. The token usage is an incredibly important point and one I'm constantly stressing for subscribers. I do so because there's always going to be new people that join the channel. I'm sorry if you're tired of listening to it, but I'm always going to continue doing it. What you have to consider is when you're investing into a cryptocurrency project, it's not like buying a share in a company. You're simply buying a token. And a token can be an entirely different thing for each project. Therefore, you always have to question, what does that token actually represent? I've seen many projects where the project could be successful, but there's no real use for the token, and therefore the token may never increase in price. The two are not always correlated, so just because you like a project, don't ever invest into the token simply for that reason. You have to make sure the token is also fundamentally useful for the project. In the case of Certic, there are two main use cases. Number one, CTK tokens can be used as a payment token. I'm not a massive fan of this one, to be honest, because it suffers from something called token velocity. But number two is that the tokens are going to be used to incentivize participants to contribute positively to the project and disincentivize them to contribute negatively. That's going to be using game theory, similar to how Bitcoin functions. And I believe this is a valid use case of the token, and therefore the token price should be correlated to the success of the project. Number one, the target market is huge. According to Certic's white paper, they believe there's going to be 10 million smart contracts in the future, and each one will cost roughly $100,000 to audit, which gives a total market size of $1 trillion. Are these numbers realistic? You do have to remember this is Certic's white paper, so I take the exact numbers with a pinch of salt, but the target market will be huge. Number two, there's currently very little competition in the market. Going back to when I mentioned earlier, how do they compare to Quantstamp? For many of you, Quantstamp may have come to mind, but that's only because there are so few competitors in the space. If I said an infrastructure project, for example, you would think, well, how does that compare to Ethereum, EOS, Neo, Cardano, and so many other projects? Quantstamp jumps to mind because they're the only competitor you can really think of. There are other competitors out there as well. I'm not saying it's just Certic versus Quantstamp, but considering the size of the market, there is very little competition at this current point in time. Number three, I believe that Certic is going to be heavily favored by the smart money. That's VC funds, hedge funds, etc. When you look at the fundamentals behind Certic, it's incredibly evident it's a very good project. So the smart money, I believe, is going to be very keen on investing into them. I can only think of one real negative, which is that auditing smart contracts isn't really that exciting a topic. And when it's a less exciting topic, the dumb money, people like you and me, the regular investors, don't seem to be that keen on those types of projects, even if the fundamentals are very strong. So that is a potential concern because the majority of this space is driven by hype and speculation, and that is driven by interest. Having said that though, Certic already has 33,000 Telegram group members, so that could be an indication that the public is also very interested into this project. Will I be investing into Certic? Currently, it's impossible to say because the token metrics haven't been released. I don't know the hard cap, I don't know the percentage of tokens being sold, I don't know the bonus for the early investors, I don't know the vesting periods. There are too many aspects that are simply unknown at this point in time to say whether it would be a good investment. What I would say though is it's definitely going to be a strong project, and if the token metrics are good, I will definitely be investing. I am going to keep all of you updated on my decision. I'm not going to make a whole YouTube video about it though, that takes so long. What I tend to do is I post that information on Twitter and on my Telegram announcement channel, along with any upcoming whitelists that I'm interested in too. So if you open up the description, you're going to find the links to both of those things where you can keep track of my final decision. Fragments is a decentralized stablecoin with the goal of always remaining at $1. Before you freak out and say, well, why would I invest into a coin that stays at $1? There's going to be two tokens, one which you'll invest into, and the other, in theory, will be the one remaining at a constant price. How do they keep the tokens at a constant price? They dynamically adjust the supply so that where supply and demand match in the middle, that should in theory always be at $1. Feel free to pause the video at this point and read off the backgrounds for the team if you wish. They have a very strong technical background, with the majority of them studying computer science at very strong universities and having further experience at the likes of Google and Uber. I believe this team is very qualified in the technical aspects, once again, not so much on the business development, but the same thing as Certic, as I'm sure they'll be bringing these people into the project once they've raised funds via the token sale. Number one, I believe decentralized stablecoins are going to be huge. Therefore, the target market for them is also going to be massive. They are undeniably so needed in the space due to the crazy volatility of the majority of cryptocurrencies. You would never really spend your Bitcoin or Ether at this current point in time because the volatility is ridiculous. And also, you wouldn't want to cash those funds out because the only reason you put them into those cryptocurrencies in the first place is as an investment. If you ever want to start spending your cryptos in real life, that is where decentralized stablecoins are going to have a huge impact. Number two is the strong team. As I said, they do slightly lack on the business development side, but personally, I'm much happier seeing a team before the ICO stage with technical people, because what that conveys to me is that they're heavily focused on building their project in the right way. And then they can carry out marketing and all of those things afterwards once they're sure their project can be a success. Number three is the strong backing from institutional investors. As you can see, they have funds like Pantera Capital who have got behind their project. And when these types of funds do so, it's always a positive indication because they've carried out far more research into the project than people like you and me can do. And if they've decided to put their money where their mouth is, it doesn't mean that we should too, but it is going to be a positive sign. The main negative I can think of is for decentralized stablecoins as a whole. Many people have been screaming out for a decentralized stablecoin ever since there has been so much doubt around Tether. However, Tether have just released an announcement from a law firm who have confirmed that Tether do actually have all of those dollars in reserve. This may negatively affect decentralized stablecoins in the short term, but I don't see it affecting their long-term future. At the end of the day, having a single centralized entity such as Tether is one central point of failure, something that the decentralized stablecoins don't suffer from. And there's also the question of whether Tether always had the dollars backing each tether. The report states that they did on June 1st, but this issue has been going on for many months now, and it's possible they simply got their funds together very recently. Issues and questions like that we don't know the answer to are the reason that decentralized stablecoins are going to win in the future, but they may take a small negative impact in the short term. Would I invest into Fragments? Once again, it's impossible to say until the token metrics have been released. I'm bringing this project to you guys now so you can follow along and you won't have to worry about missing out on the whitelist. Once again, follow along on Twitter or via the Telegram announcement channel, and I will let all of you know my decision once those token metrics have been released. With Trust Token, I've saved the best till last. So what is it? Trust Token is a platform which allows you to create asset-backed tokens. In other words, you can tokenize real-world assets. Before I cover what that is, what I want to highlight is the fact that they've already released their first product, which you guys may be familiar with, and that is TrueUSD, another stablecoin. That's just the first product that they've released, and they're going to be releasing many in the future as well, which shows you the scope of this project. So what is tokenizing real world assets? The best way I can describe it is like this. If you go and buy a house, you sign a contract known as a deed, which represents that you have ownership to that house. At the end of the day, it's just a piece of paper, but that paper is representing that you own that house. Well, instead of having a piece of paper, why not create a token which you can put on a blockchain? It does the exact same thing, it just represents that you own that house. But instead of being a piece of paper which can be forged, which can be destroyed, which can be changed in any way whatsoever, you can put a token on an immutable decentralized blockchain and then no one can touch it. Tokenization sounds very complicated, but the concept itself is actually very simple and it has many improvements on the current system. Another benefit is that it provides a global market and liquidity. So let's use another example now. Let's say that there's a real estate development in the US. If we use a contract and we sign a deed, it's going to be very difficult to sell a portion of that real estate development to someone abroad in China, let's say. However, if we represent it as a token instead, you can trade that token very easily, and then you can split up portions of that real estate development into tiny fractions as well, because tokens are highly divisible. So you could create a real estate development in the US, and then you could sell those tokens which represent fractional ownership in a liquid worldwide market. Once again, I'm not going to run through all the profiles of the team. You guys are not lazy. There's going to be links in the description. You can check that out for yourself. I will run through the top few team members though. Working our way from left to right, beginning with Danny, who is the co-founder and CEO. He graduated from the University of Texas and went on to work for PwC. Raphael graduated from Stanford University and since went on to work for Google. And Stephen graduated from Berkeley and has founded several startups himself. My overall opinion of the team is that I believe they are very, very strong and have already proven themselves to some extent because they've already released their first product. After looking for a while, unfortunately, I was unable to find a roadmap. If you know of one, please comment down below and I will obviously take a look at that. The token has three main uses. Number one, to pay fiduciaries who fulfill accounting requirements and interface with legal financial institutions. In other words, people who are helping to create these asset-backed tokens. Number two, aligning the incentives of participants. So that's going back to the game theory I mentioned for the previous projects. Number three, to collateralize underlying assets. Number one, they have a very strong team. These guys are heavily focused on the technical elements, but they also have a balance with the business development, which is nice to see as well. Number two, they already have their first working product. Many people are familiar with TrueUSD as it's already been listed on Binance. That's just the first working product and they've already released that before even having their token sale. Number three is the large scope of the project. Some projects are focused just on creating stablecoins and that is a very, very valid project. If you can focus heavily on that, there's a huge target market for that alone. In the case of Trust Token though, that is simply their first product and they're going to be bringing more onto the platform in the future as well. The main negative is simply that I was unable to find a roadmap. Therefore, it's difficult to assess the future development of the project and integrate a timeline with that as well. Would I invest into Trust Token? As I said, this is my favorite of the three projects, so my answer is probably going to be yes, but I cannot answer that without seeing the token metrics. If they do a Telegram ICO and want to raise $3 or $4 billion, then no, I'm not going to be investing into it. If it's a reasonable cap, then I do believe this is one of the strongest upcoming projects around, so I would be interested in investing. Once again, the update is going to be on Twitter and via the Telegram announcement channel, so join those through the links in the description. Now I have a question for you. Have you already subscribed to the channel? If you like cryptocurrencies and ICOs and you're particularly interested on the investing side, this is the perfect channel for you. So hit that subscription button and you're going to see lots of content about the best upcoming projects specifically focused on that investing side. From Tom here at Crypto Gurus, thank you so much for watching and we will speak again very soon.